Our political correspondent Sophie Ridge will have more on that in a moment. But first, as our economics editor Ed Conway revealed earlier this week, households are pulling money out of their savings accounts at the fastest rate in decades as the rising cost of living outpaces incomes. Ed is at the big screen back at Sky Studios with more.
Thanks, Jeff. And as you mentioned, we have all of the measures, the main measures that are expected from the autumn statement today here on the screen. You can see state pension ages over there. But you mentioned cost of living. I mean, that is one of the big issues that's overhanging the course of today's event. And let's just take a look at precisely what we're really talking about there. It's this. This is the squeeze on families' incomes. Over the course of the past decade, you can see before the crisis, people's wages, that's the yellow line there, were rising faster than inflation, and it meant that people were getting wealthier. That grey area is essentially people seeing their real incomes increasing. But then move on after 2008, and it's a very different story. This red area essentially means that inflation, CPI, is rising faster than wages at 0.84 just at the moment. And as a result of that, people are essentially getting poorer. The interesting thing today is going to be to look at precisely what the government expects is going to happen to that real earnings picture. And we can kind of work out how that's happening by comparing what it expects for inflation over the course of the next few years and average earnings. And if you look at them, what we see here is although inflation, 2.8% this year, is higher than earnings, if you can see that, 1.4% this year. Next year, inflation is going to be 2.4 and earnings are going to be 2.7. So essentially what that means is it's expecting the squeeze to come to an end as soon as next year. And that picture may well look a little bit better when we actually get those final numbers from the Chancellor today. I think one thing that's just worth looking at is the question of what is it that's actually causing this squeeze on people's incomes? What part of inflation has been making life more expensive? And we can see some of that by looking at this chart. This shows you remember we looked at that chart earlier showing wages and inflation. Well, they essentially are right there. The cost of essentially living has gone up by 32%, wages have gone up by 33% over the past decade. But energy bills over that period are up by 154%, just over that. And that is one of the main reasons why George Osborne is going to be focusing on energy bills when he does the autumn statement today, Jeff.